big hole over there in the wall with tailing pile. We got a couple others on the left over here. Another hole a little higher up. Got some woods kind of holding back something up there. You see that?
Mining holes.
Bridge. Mining, bridge. You guys are all very close. This particular site is known as Marble Canyon Dam Site.
Oh.
Okay, so here's the Grand Canyon history. And this is a huge part of your American history. If you haven't heard of what's transpiring here in Grand Canyon. So, we need to understand that Grand Canyon became a national park. This is going to take me a few minutes to spew all this out. So, Grand Canyon, anybody know when Grand Canyon was a national park?
1918.
1919? National Park. Okay, 2000, that'll work. So, Grand Canyon National Park, right? Anybody know when the construction of Hoover Dam was completed?
38, 36.
32. So, we have the construction of Hoover Dam, which is originally called Boulder Canyon Dam. Grand Canyon National Park was originally a national monument, then became National Park 1990. Now, we have Hoover Dam, which has tamed the mighty Colorado River in 1932. That was the completion of Hoover Dam, originally Boulder Canyon. These first 60 miles of Grand Canyon National Park and the last 40 miles of Grand Canyon National Park as we know it today were not adopted into Grand Canyon National Park until 1972. Okay? So this whole first section of the first 60 miles would have been known as Marble Canyon. Then you got to Grand Canyon National Park. The boundary line would have been the little Colorado River, flowed all the way down, and then approximately mile 234-ish, 235-ish, you would get to what was known as the remaining last 40 miles, which were not part of the national park, right? So they adopted those last 40 miles on the first 60 miles, like I said, in 1972. Well, what were we doing back in the mid-20s and early 30s?
Building dams everywhere.
Building dams all over the United States. We were taming every single river, every side stream we could tame, right? That's what we were doing.
Progress.
The Army Corps of Engineers, we had progress happening, right? It was the Industrial Revolution. We were conquering the world. We were Americans. We were proud to be Americans. It was hold on, I'm not done. As part of being American, right? That whole concept. Go ahead.
Part of putting people back to work too is part of it.
Especially after the Great Depression. It was a big deal. The Hoover Dam employed several hundred men during the Great Depression, so it was a big deal. So the Army Corps of Engineers, the Bureau of Reclamation, built Hoover Dam. They had tamed the mighty Colorado River. There was a proposal known as the Colorado River Compact. Colorado River Compact was basically they wanted to, I don't know, this is all going to be in layman's terms, so there won't be any tests for this stuff. But the Colorado River Compact was this. We want to build a series of staircasing dams from Dinosaur National Monument all the way down through the Colorado River. Dinosaur National Monument being up on the Green River side. Anybody been to Dinosaur National Monument? It's absolutely amazing. Okay, all the way down through Grand Canyon, Grand Canyon, and then all the way down through California, right? Because the river runs right up to the Sea of Cortez, creating this beautiful delta out in the Sea of Cortez, which is no longer there. That huge delta is still part of that sea, but the new food source and new rocks and sediment and silt does not reach the Sea of Cortez anymore. It actually fingers out in little canals, big canals, and then a bunch of, if you have an aerial photo of this waterway, Colorado River, it goes in the canals, then it goes in irrigation ditches, and then it just disappears. Okay? So, Colorado River Compact came about. And it was a very, very great thing. We were going to store all this water for these southern states. We were going to have upper basin users. The dividing line would be Glen Canyon Dam. And we'd have lower basin users. Okay? So these upper basin users would be using power and water, and lower basin users would be using power. Arizona gave up their water rights a long time ago, just shortly after they became a state. All their power and their water comes from the Salt River. So, but anyway, if the other 9 are there, I get sidetracked pretty easy. Colorado River's flowing through. They tamed the mighty Colorado River with Hoover Dam, right? So let's build these series of staircasing dams. Unbeknownst to the general public, they were blasting holes in the side of the walls of the Grand Canyon, which technically weren't the Grand Canyon, to check the integrity of the walls of the Grand Canyon. Does this make a great dam site? They thought it would. In 1923, there was a U.S. Geological Survey expedition that came down, known as the Bird's Eye Expedition. In fact, Burt Loper was supposed to be on that expedition. He was for a short period of time. We'll talk about that later. But that Bird's Eye Expedition was surveying all the way through, from Dinosaur National Monument all the way down, through Cataract Canyon, Glen Canyon, through Grand Canyon, Hoover Dam, down below. Okay? So everywhere there's dams on the Colorado and the Green River side is exactly where Bird's Eye Expedition said, great place to build a dam. Glen Canyon, great place to build a dam. That's from the 1923. Okay? So, has anybody seen that documentary of the building of Hoover Dam? How they diverted the water and how those guys drove those trucks? It's phenomenal. Phenomenal, the amount of cement and the amount of work that it took for Hoover Dam to divert the Colorado River.
It came in 2 years early.
Yeah.
Finished it early.
Yep. Unbelievable. Unprecedented. Hoover Dam had a life expectancy of approximately 500 years. Okay? That 500-year life expectancy was cut in half after the construction of Hoover Dam, and it was backing up with water, because they grossly underestimated the amount of silt and sediment dumping into Lake Mead per hour. Okay? Pre-dam, Glen Canyon Dam wasn't even constructed. So spring floods, lots of silt and sediment, muddy river, right? Bringing down everything, scouring everything. They estimated that 10,000 train car loads were dumping into Lake Mead per hour. Okay, which means turbines get packed full of sand and dirt, right? And then it gets bad, it gets real bad. So they cut the life expectancy of Hoover Dam was cut in half. So let me make a long story shorter, because I'm kind of getting hot. Bureau of Reclamation, Army Corps of Engineers was down here. Bureau of Reclamation was like, let's go, full force. They got a little sidetracked, started building some stuff in California, came back, and so let's fast forward from the 30s to the 50s, late 50s. They started doing this, boom, 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 boom. The 100th person to travel by waterway through Grand Canyon wasn't until 1949, 100 years later. 1869, first expedition, right? Powell expedition. 1949, 100th person to travel by water. Now we get 26,000 visitors a year by water. You're one of those 26,000. Impressive, right? So the Grand Canyon was way out there. That was that national park that everybody went and looked over the rim and went, oh yeah, spent 6.5 minutes on the rim and then got back in the car and took off. You know, big hole in the ground. But not a lot of people knew what was happening down here. The general public didn't know what was happening down here. There was a small grassroots organization that was catching wind, and they were building steam, and they were primarily a hunting and fishing club. Okay, and the president of that hunting and fishing club was known as David Brower. David Brower was the president of Sierra Club. Okay, you all know the Sierra Club, right? Back then it was just barely getting off the ground. David Brower heard they're blasting holes in the Grand Canyon. We need to save Grand Canyon. So he started taking these little 3x5 ads out in all major newspapers across the world, across the United States. Save Grand Canyon, call this number. Bureau of Reclamation was like, screw you guys, you guys are those little petite people, we'll take care of you. You know, full page ads all across the United States. People recreating in their houseboat, people saying, touch the walls in your house, from your houseboat at the Grand Canyon National Park. A little lady in her bikini reaching across and touching the wall, you know, from the houseboat. And people skiing, you know, doing that stuff. Recreation, they were trying to sell it as recreation and storage for these southern states, which they knew were in the Southwest was going to explode and blow up. Well, they overestimated the amount of water that actually flows through the Colorado per year. Of course they did. They fabricated the numbers. They were saying that it was unbelievable the amount of numbers, like what, 26 million acre feet flow down the Colorado River per year. This river hasn't produced 26 million acre feet in its lifetime. So these are the numbers they just made up as they went so they could sell it for recreation and for water storage. So David Brower started fighting. The Sierra Club was like, no, we got to save Grand Canyon. We need to save Grand Canyon. Bureau of Reclamation got a little upset about it. They're like, you know what? This is getting ridiculous. You lose your nonprofit status, Sierra Club. Now you get to pay taxes. Yep. So you piss off the government as a nonprofit organization, what are you going to end up doing? Paying taxes. Well, that's when the general public was like, what the heck, man? I can't write this off anymore? My $50, it doesn't mean anything anymore? I got to pay taxes on that? Or whatever it is they've been donating? And it really pissed off the general public. Now the general public started catching wind of what was going on. Sierra Club's getting picked on by our local government. Not local government, but our federal government. So the federal government started getting a lot of phone calls from general public. You know, hey, what's going on with the Sierra Club? What's going on with the Sierra Club? Why are you picking on the Sierra Club? Why do I have to pay taxes on my nonprofit organization that I give money to? Blah, blah, blah. One way to get the general public involved in something is up taxes, right? Make you pay more taxes. So the Sierra Club's like, you know what, we're gonna, while we have this snowball happening, we're gonna end up pooling our money together, and we are going to take out a full-page ad in every newspaper in the United States. And basically, David Brower practically bankrupted the Sierra Club by doing this. They didn't have a lot of money back then. So they pooled all their money together, and they took out a full-page ad in every newspaper. It was a great ad. It was absolutely great marketing. Sistine Chapel almost flooded to the ceiling. People reaching from their boats to touch the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, and it said in big blocky letters, would you flood the Sistine Chapel to get closer to the ceiling to save Grand Canyon? Then general public's like, something's going on in Grand Canyon. So they, phone calls, letters. Till to this day, there hasn't been near as many phone calls and letters written as there were in that time to Congress.